Okay, everyone, welcome to this webinar today. I'm Francis Seeley from GlobalNet 21 and Enfield Voices, and we've got with us today Tolga Aramaz, who's a councillor in Enfield, and he's going to talk about a development in Enfield called Meridian Water, and some of the principles behind that are some of the principles and some of the controversies we find right across the country when it comes to development in our modern age. So we're really pleased that Tolga's with us today and that we can go through this because he has very strong views on this. Anyhow, Tolga, thank you very much for joining us. And maybe we could start by you telling us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Oh, I don't really get asked this question all the time, so I'm not very savvy in answering it. I've lived in Enfield all my life. I've done politics at university, and then I wanted to do something I really cared about, and hence why I got involved in the Labour Party and put my name forward to be a councillor. And here I am.
So what made you choose the avenue of being a councillor? What made you want to be on the council?
This is a good question. In all honesty, when I was at university, I wasn't thinking about local politics or getting involved in the Labour Party or anything. Although I was a member at around 2015, well, 2014 actually, I didn't get involved in the Labour Party because I wanted the international career instead. What made me change my mind was actually Jeremy Corbyn and his involvement, and that's when I thought, all right, the Labour Party is worth getting involved with then.
Okay, so you got involved in the Labour Party, you became a councillor, and I think you represent a ward in Edmonton, which represents some of the more deprived areas of the London Borough of Enfield. And being in that ward, is that what has given you your passion for housing?
Well, not just housing. I mean, I can see that almost every economical problem we have in the country, my ward also is going through those problems, and it's quite bad in the sense that housing is one of the biggest issues that push people into the poverty line. Most of my case studies that I do in my advice surgeries are about how people need council homes, and there's 5,200 applicants on the council waiting list. So naturally, I grew an interest in the matter of housing.
Well, you have an interest in housing generally, but you got very focused, haven't you, on a major development in Edmonton, Lower Edmonton, and that's Meridian Water. Yeah. What made you interested in that particularly?
Well, initially, before I became councillor, I would hear about Meridian Water quite a few times, and the concept of affordable homes was always talking about. And I generally thought, because it was a council project, that it would be a positive one for Edmonton specifically, because it's always been targeted for Edmonton. Once I got into the detail of it, I quickly understood that really this isn't going to benefit people of Edmonton at all, and it's not really meeting the needs of our borough. Hence why I grew a massive interest in it.
Okay, so you're interested in it, but I mean, people who are maybe watching this and watching the recording of this may not know what Meridian Water is. So just to give them some idea, what is Meridian Water?
Sure. Well, Meridian Water is a council project. It's one of the biggest housing projects in London. The project will aim to build 10,000 council homes and deliver 6,000 jobs, although this has recently changed in the proposal the council has given called ELAP, and they reduced it to 5,000 homes and 1,500 jobs, purely because the strategic industrial land that the buildings were supposed to go on was not released by the Mayor of London. So we've got a project that the council is building 5,000 homes right now, and will deliver 1,500 jobs at the end of the project.
So when the original plan came up, I mean, you mentioned one or two changes. I mean, is the development now very different to what it was originally?
Well, reducing from 10,000 to 5,000 is quite a drop, and I would say fundamentally everything has changed in that sense. I mean, the council still has the aspiration to deliver 10,000, but the strategic industrial land doesn't look like it's going to be released, and Sadiq Khan still looks like he's going to remain there. So until the council can come up with alternative plans, it's a 5,000 home project with a quarter of the number of jobs that they were planning, which is 1,500 now.
But has it not changed several times? I mean, the previous administration started with the development with 10,000 homes. Then when the new administration came in, they changed it, and it's changed a bit since then, hasn't it? There seems to be pressure on whoever is administering Enfield Council to, you know, sort of shrink down what was originally proposed.
Yeah, well, my intention here is not to really grill down on the detail of what this administration done or what that administration done, because at the end of the day, I've only been a councillor for 2 years now, and what's relevant to me is what's happening now. There was problems beforehand with the developer, and the agreed developer kept changing previously, but what I'm concerned with now is what's on the table now, and whatever's on the table now is not going to benefit the residents of where I represent, or generally Enfield Borough.
But before we go into what's there now, and we'll look at that in some detail, I mean, part of the reasons for the change, or the changes, was that the government inspector looked at the development in Meridian Water and said the plans were unsound and wanted drastic changes. So there were pressures from outside saying you didn't have a sound development. Is that right?
Well, that was a very recent development, actually. The initial ELAP proposal had 10,000 homes and 6,000 jobs, but obviously this has to go through the Secretary of State's inspection, and after that inspection, quite a few different changes happened, and that's why the number of homes was reduced to 5,000 and jobs to 1,500, and because the inspector said that the plans were unsound, and that it couldn't meet the aspiration of 10,000 homes and 6,000 jobs. There was even still right now, the financial model that this project is based on the 10,000 homes, and in the 10,000 homes that is being advertised, private developers like Tesco and IKEA, which we have no control over what they do of their car parks, are also being included in the end result of the number of homes that will be delivered. I don't see why that's the case, because they're not a part of the council project.
Okay, well,
like that.
Well, just to get it clear before we go and look at the number of housing and so on, I mean, there was an original plan. When the new administration came in, they sort of did that, where they said, look, we've changed it, we've saved it. But since then, there's been another report saying that what you saved isn't adequate, it's not sound, and they had to change it again. So now we're where we're at now, aren't we? You know, whatever the mistakes or the short-sightedness of any administration. And the big change that you're worried about, given the fact that you represent a ward with so much deprivation, is the lack of housing that your local community could use. Is that right?
Absolutely right. I mean, I'm currently a member of a work stream that goes on in the council on the Meridian Water issue, and we had a meeting on Monday, and the tenure mix is where I had the problem, and I discovered that it's much worse than I initially thought it was, and I can break that down to right now. if that's okay.
Okay, break it down first of all in telling us, you know, how much housing is private at a commercial market price and how much is affordable. Let's begin with that bit. Let's come to the council a bit later, but
Sure.
how much is affordable?
Right. The affordable levels has always got a question mark around it, because the government definition of affordable comes to what is understood as intermediate affordable, and that is 80% market value. Now, considering the average house price in Enfield is around £400,000, that would mean an 80% market value house would be £320,000. You need about £80,000 a year to get a mortgage for something like that, if you can get 4 times the amount of your salary, and that's being generous, I think. So what the intermediate affordable is certainly not affordable. Now, that is going to amount to 12% of the tenure mix in this project. 60% is going to be at market rate. So in total, we have 72% of the homes that are not affordable.
Okay, well, let's look at the other 28% in a minute. But when you say it's not affordable, your worry is that, you know, local Edmonton people are being shifted out, and what you're getting in your area is gentrification that will bring other people in, and the people already living there, who've lived there for years, will be excluded.
Well, Edmonton Green is one of the most deprived wards in the country, let alone just London. People cannot afford the level of homes that are being delivered at Meridian Water. And effectively, as reported on the work stream, this is going to increase the land value of up to about 20%. And people will be slowly pushed out of Edmonton because of this project, and they can't afford the homes anyway. So it is a gentrification project when you consider it.
And what about council housing? I mean, there was limited council housing. There's now more, but that's not sufficient in your opinion. Is that right?
Well, I was in the assumption that there was more. I found out on the work stream that that's not the case. Now, 28% was being said to be London affordable rent homes, which is still true, but only 10% of the homes in total would be owned by the council. So this is public land. We own this land, and at the end of this project, we'll only own 10% of the council homes there. The rest, 18%, which totals up to the 28% London affordable rent homes, would potentially be owned by a housing association. Now, I've got an issue with London affordable rent itself as well, because although when you compare it at market value, it comes to about 50% market value, it is when you compare it from Enfield social rent to London affordable rent, it's a 60% increase. Enfield social rent for 1 bed is £91 per week, whereas London affordable rent is £155. So there's quite a big difference, and that will push many people into the poverty line and make them dependent on housing benefit, which is another problem I have with this project, because there's no socially rented homes here.
But if you were to increase the number of council-owned properties there, and you've got developers in as well, no developer would come in, would they, if there was too much council housing because there's not enough profit, and the council couldn't afford to develop it on their own. So it's a catch-22 situation, isn't it?
Well, this is the thing. Now, if we're saying that financially we can't deliver more council homes, and the best we can do is on land that we own, deliver 10% of the homes. So right now, out of the 5,000, only 500 would be owned by us. why are we going into so much risk and developing land in such a way that is going to be unaffordable to many of my residents and supposedly those who need it? Why are we going into so much risk if that is the case? This project's going to cost about £1 billion. I don't see the point of it if it's not helping the people it's supposed to help. And secondly, there is other ways of looking into this project. Now, one way to have a look at it is the way Joyce and Snell's regeneration is happening, which is also in Edmonton Green. Now, at the end of that regeneration project, we will own all the council, all the homes there, but some of them will be at market rent to pay off our debt that we've accumulated. Now, that is the way maybe we can look at for Meridian Water instead of selling off everything. And another way Islington Council, for instance, does is 60% council homes and 40% genuinely affordable that they determine through the median income levels. That's on public land that they do. So this is the things we could be looking into.
Well, when you say we could be looking into, has it not been looked into, or has a proper assessment not been done to look at the feasibility of, saying, having the Islington model or any other council-based model? Because, you know, they've chosen the developers model, they've gone down that line and they're working with them. And the model you're suggesting might work, but it might be too expensive. Has there been a real assessment done?
Well, not that I've seen. I mean, although there is a lot of aspirations in this project, I don't see any weighting in the housing tenure mix when created about meeting the needs of the borough. And the borough needs is quite vital. That's what we're elected to meet. And right now we have a housing crisis in the borough. We've got 5,200 people on the council waiting list, waiting on an average of 15 years. We've got 3,400 people in temporary accommodation. And we don't even have proper records of how many rough sleepers we have in the borough. So we have a crisis. We have overcrowding issue as well. We have a crisis, and we need to act like there's a crisis, and we need to be maximizing social council homes wherever we can to meet this problem, rather than delivering a majority of unaffordable homes.
I mean, you say that, but the inspector also said a similar thing, didn't he, when he looked at the development there, and he said the plan did not deliver family housing to meet local needs. Now, did the council listen to that, or did they just dismiss it?
No, they have to listen to it, because otherwise it doesn't get the planning permission it requires. Now, what the funny thing was that we contradicted our own policy on ELAP, because we've got a policy called Development Management Document, and it's called DMD for short. Now, that states out what needs to be met minimally, and the minimal expectation from the affordable homes in that side is that 70% of the affordable homes should be social rent and affordable rent, and 30% should be intermediate affordable. But at the moment, we don't have any socially rented homes, and we just have what's understood as non-affordable rent. And this can get confusing at times, because there's so many different rent levels and whatnot. But the cheapest rent level which people expect to pay at a council home is Enfield social rent, and we have none of those right now in Meridian Water. And
why do you think those have been excluded?
Well, I'm assuming purely on a financial basis, it's being excluded. I mean, we made that point at the work stream again on Monday, that as a principle, this is this is what we should be delivering, the cheapest rent level for council homes. And that was acknowledged, and many members made the point that although financially, at face value, it might be too costly to deliver more affordable homes and whatnot. But what's more costly? There is a cost of having so many people in temporary accommodation. There's a cost of not having so many people on the council waiting list. There's a social values impact as well, and that has to be evaluated when making this project as well.
Okay, but some critics of that view argue that the best form of housing is where there is a social mix. That in this country we've created too many ghettos, working class ghettos, middle class ghettos, ethnic ghettos, and so on. And we need to have a better mix. But you're sort of encouraging that silo mentality with your plan, aren't you?
Well, what I'm saying is, if we have a crisis, that there are very vulnerable people that need council homes, then the number one priority should be to meet the needs of the borough and finish this crisis that we have. Until then, I don't see why there should be a mixture of tenure. Now, the aspect of looking into council homes, just council homes delivering ghettos and whatnot, to me that's a very classist view of everything. Now I'm speaking to you through this phone in a council home myself. I lived in a council home all my life, and the point being made about it delivers ghettos and whatnot, I like to refute that, because what does that say about me? That I'm also a part of this ghetto. There is other council members also that grew up in council homes. It's the idea of council homes delivering ghettos and poverty areas is not because it's a council home. It's because there is no opportunity given to these people when these council homes are built, and they are all together because they're the most vulnerable people. But it's not the council home that's delivering this. It's a lack of opportunity in society that's delivering this. And whether we like to see it all bunched up in one place or circulated around is another issue. But that is a systematic issue, that these people don't have opportunity, and that should be faced in another way.
And of course, one of the opportunities that people want is jobs, and the number of jobs available because of Meridian Waters has gone down as the plan has moved on and on, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, it was 6,000, but now in the most up-to-date ELAP proposal is dropped to 1,500, which is a quarter of the jobs that was aimed for.
So you believe that the development won't benefit people either in housing or in jobs?
Well, obviously, 1,500 jobs is 1,500 jobs that never existed. So obviously there is a benefit in having new jobs that we didn't have. But it's not the amount of jobs that we could have had. And more specifically, my issue is not the amount of jobs that are being delivered, but the tenure mix itself. And hence why myself and a couple other councillors and many other Enfield activists came together to set up a campaign group called Meridian for Council Homes to pressure the council to deliver the maximum number of socially rented homes, council homes that can. The demands are 100% council homes, 100% social rent with 100% secure tenancy. There's a public meeting happening on the 28th of March at the Edmonton Methodist Church at 11 a.m. And I hope people can come there to hear what was going to be discussed there.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you about that, but you got there before me. But that's okay. I mean, with the meeting that you're talking about, is that open to everyone, or just local people?
It's public. It's open to everyone. The Reverend Reverend Deji from the Edmonton Methodist Church. I thank him for hosting us there. He's given us space to have a public meeting, and at that public meeting there'll be information going around about what is happening in Meridian Water and what needs to be done as a campaign to push for what we want.
Okay, I mean, but there's campaign going and so on, but there are other pressures on the council as well about Meridian Waters. And do you think Meridian Waters really has a future? Because I gather that because of the financial situation of the council, the external auditor said that there are a number of projects that may be at risk because Enfield Council is not viable in terms of financial sustainability in the long term. And they suggested one of the projects that may be at risk is Meridian Water. Do you think that's true?
Well, I'm not a professional in that sense that I can evaluate the auditor's claims. I'll just have to take it at face value and question council officers about what the auditor is saying and what their opinion of it is. Obviously, when you do projects like this, there is a massive risk that comes with it all the time. Now, I'd be happy to take upon that risk if it was going to deliver houses to meet the needs of this borough. But delivering 10% council homes on public land is not adequate and is not worth the risk in my opinion. So that's how I look at the whole thing. So,
given your view, given where you want to go and where the campaign group wants to go, how do you see the future? Do you have hope, or do you think you're fighting against the tides?
I do have hope, because at the end of the day, people who got elected in the Labour Party are there to deliver the social need aspect and deliver homes for the many and not the few. And when looking into this project properly, I hope that when people understand it, because it is hard to understand, when people understand it, they will see what needs to be done and how this project needs to change. So I do have hope in that sense.
And the councillors that cover that area, are they sympathetic to the campaign, all of them, or do you have work to do?
Well, considering it hasn't changed, I think I have work to do, and I can't do this by myself. Obviously, I've got other councillor comrades who are very sympathetic to the things that are being said by me and other councillors and this campaign group. What will happen is a discussion at the Labour group will happen about this and see how we can change it, if we can change it. But right now, as the way it is, 10% council homes is inadequate in my eyes.
But you think you can change it, or, I mean, you sound a bit doubtful there.
Well, I don't know how it's going to go. We'll see. I do believe that people who got themselves elected to the council on the Labour Party ticket, they're there with good intentions. So I am hoping that they see the argument that I'm making and support what I'm saying. But time will tell.
Okay, so if anybody wanted to get involved in the campaign, to join a campaign group, to get in touch with you, where do they go and what do they do?
Well, the campaign group has its social media pages on Facebook and Twitter. If they want to get in touch with me directly, they can find my details on the council website, or they can just email me. My email address is cllr.tolga.aramaz@enfield.gov.uk. You can just email me directly, or you can just maybe question on Enfield Voices and whatnot, and I'm sure people will direct you in the right way.
Okay, all right. Well, we sort of come to the end of our half hour now, so thank you for doing that. You're clearly someone who feels very strongly about that, and you've got a lot of courage because you'll stand up you know, not only against the developers, but sometimes against your own party to do that. And that's always a very tough thing to do, and it sometimes has consequences that it shouldn't have. So you've explained your case very well. You've answered some of the criticisms of your case very well as well. So, you know, if people do want to get in touch with you and get in touch with the campaign, I hope they do, because you are right. We do have a housing crisis in this borough, as we do in the country as a whole, where lots of people are being priced totally out of the housing market. And that is a priority to solve, and to solve as quickly as we can. So, you know, thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving us your point of view. And, you know, it's been a very good interview. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, Councillor.
Okay, well, we'll end this interview now.